The Golden State Warriors have just finished up their first preseason game, and while these shouldn't be given the same weight as regular season games, this is where players get to showcase their abilities and what they're capable of doing in the upcoming season. The overall result, win or lose, isn't as important, but what is important is how these players actually play in those few minutes on the floor. For the Warriors players, this is particularly exciting because even though the official perspective on the two timelines is that it's dead.
Okay, that point of attack defense. And that's just so important to the Warriors. Moody, how hot am I? Why not? 5 of 6 on threes.
That is far from the reality on the floor. Despite the age factor affecting the Warriors, this team is filled with enough talent for two completely different starting lineups. That is, they have enough depth to offset any player going missing.
Up top, Curry, catch, fire, catch!
Except Curry, of course. But if what I'm seeing is a sign of what's to come, those minutes without Steph Curry should see the Warriors thrive with enough firepower. It isn't just on offense that the Warriors have improved, however. Remember that guy they signed, Al Horford? Turns out he's a monster in the paint. Let's see just what monstrosity the Warriors could be getting ready to unleash on the rest of the league this season. Now get ready. You're about to get switched. The Warriors project to have the oldest starting lineup in the history of the NBA, with Curry, Pods, Jimmy, Draymond, and Al Horford. While having Horford start at the 5 seems like the most logical approach, we saw in the Lakers game that Steve Kerr had something else in mind, namely small ball. In his recent interview, Kerr hinted that his starting lineup would be Curry, Podziemski, Moody, Butler, and Green.
Yeah, I think the way I'm looking at it is, we kind of know the guys who are going to start for sure. You guys know who those guys are. Draymond at the 5, Moses and BP in the backcourt. That was a really successful lineup. So we could start that way if we wanted.
This was the lineup that he found success with after the Jimmy Butler trade, and it seems he's more interested in going back to that moving forward.
Yeah, what I like about the small lineup is it really empowers Moses to be that disruptor defensively, which he was right away. I know he picked up a couple fouls, but he had a couple deflections. You could feel his presence right away, and then he has this great shooting night. So I love starting Moses for that reason. I also love starting Brandon.
There isn't a whole lot to see with this lineup in terms of offensive development, but a few things to be noted either way. First, Jimmy was healthy and available to play. Notorious for missing regular season games, this was huge for Jimmy to be ready to go in the preseason game, especially when he was initially listed as questionable after rolling his ankle about a week ago. If Jimmy isn't a part of the starting lineup, this could make things very tough for the Warriors. Not as bad as one might think, but probably pretty bad if you're Steve Kerr. The next not-so-new news actually goes back a few weeks. Brandon Payne, Steph Curry's trainer, posted a comment about Steph Curry, which was very hard to believe. That is, at 37, his first step quickness and explosiveness is the fastest that it's ever been, if not faster. Payne goes on further to explain exactly why this was. But as players age, he says, the one thing they can do is continue to work on processing information fast and make faster decisions to offset any gap that is created with losing a step. That hasn't happened with him yet. So when you combine the fact that physically he's still at a peak and now he's making decisions faster, we have a very quick player out there. In just 15 minutes on the floor, Steph Curry had 14 points on 5 of 7 from the field, seemingly unaware of the fact that Curry stopper Jared Vanderbilt was on the floor. Age clearly hasn't slowed down Steph Curry one bit, and neither did Commando Vando. But the next few developments are what really put me at the edge of my seat. Now before we dive in, here's a bit of pretext. Moses Moody shot 36% from 3, more or less for his first 3 seasons in the league. Last year, that number went up to 37%. This was in spite of the fact that he finished the season with a thumb injury to his shooting hand. Against the Lakers in the preseason matchup, Moody went 5 for 7 from three-point range with a heat check thrown in there for good measure. He just couldn't miss. It's worth noting that he's got a quicker release and better decision-making with the ball. Over the offseason, we saw work on his handles, which also allow him to more successfully drive to the basket after a pump fake, so he's not just settling for threes. He was easily the player of the game. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits close to or even over 40% from 3 this season. Moses Moody might just take it to the next level in year 5, and as a likely permanent player in that starting role, might just give Steve Kerr even more flexibility in the starting lineup than he already has. But that's contingent upon another factor being true. That is, the development as a facilitator and primary ball handler of Jonathan Kuminga. Before we even talk about that, however, is this even a thing? I have a quote by JK that came about after he returned to the team where he discussed playing with Jimmy Butler, which was pretty interesting.
It's very easy and simple to play with Jimmy, and we actually get to sit down more now. You know, I get to go ask him certain questions. How does he like to play? What does he like? Because I don't see it not working. And I feel like just us having a lot of time together, me being healthy, him being here, from day one, like training camp wise, you know, it's gonna help us, you know, figuring out certain things about each other, just going forward.
So now we're answering the question of, can Jonathan Kuminga give us some of what we get from Jimmy on the offensive end? In 15 minutes, he had 4 assists, and it easily could have been 5 or 6 if Draymond would make his wide open layups. Instead of looking for his own shots, JK was making some great reads in the flow of the offense. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary or forced. He could play out of the post and kick out as he did with finding GP2 for the 3, or he can run the offense in transition as he did here in finding Buddy for the layup. Now he did miss a read to hit Pods for the open 3 as it didn't look like he even saw him, but if he's put in that position often enough, it doesn't seem like something that would happen too often. That aside, I might just be nitpicking because that find to Buddy was for a higher percentage shot, something that the Warriors have used to find success the last 10 years. With 6 rebounds in those short 15 minutes, this was really an eye-opening moment for JK. If he can realize how much impact he has on the game without scoring, continue to crash the boards for these rebounds and feed his teammates, Steve might be forced to make a tough decision in the near future. At the other end of the floor, we saw JK guarding Gabe Vincent and definitely put him into some tough positions. If the player you're guarding is going to attempt circus shots like this, then you did your job. Whether he hits them or not is irrelevant. But this bit is important for the reason I mentioned earlier with Moses Moody. While Moody can play the 2 guard on offense, defensively, he's just not as quick. Moody had a few early fouls, but on the plus side, his defensive pressure stagnated the Lakers' offense. If the Warriors run a lineup of Curry, Moody, Kuminga, Butler, and Horford, Kuminga's ability to guard 1 through 4 could cover up Moody's weaknesses at guarding smaller guards. His shooting ability will keep him at the shooting guard slot on offense, but guarding 3s on defense. With JK guarding 1s and 2s next to him, that could become a part of the Warriors' formula going forward to unleash both these guys on the perimeter. Now, if you're wondering what happens if these guys get beat, what happens with no Draymond? And that's the beauty of this team's flexibility. Horford had 3 blocks and 1 steal in his 14 minutes on the floor. He functions extremely well as a rim protector and seamlessly fits into the Warriors' schemes. This applies on both ends of the floor. One of his first plays saw him hit Curry with a 1-2 pass for a layup off the catch. Horford's passing seems to be a very underrated part of his game as he can catch guys at just the right moment to finish some easy looks. Pat Spencer making a cut was rewarded on a pass by Horford for the reverse layup. Being on the perimeter allows Al to have a huge impact as a passer, and all these intangibles outside of his shooting showed just why he was such an important piece to the Boston Celtics winning the championship in 2024. When you add in the fact that he'll be shooting at north of 36% and the number of open looks he's going to get playing alongside Steph Curry, this combination could be deadly. Steve did mention one of the pairings he'd like to see is Al next to Jonathan Kuminga, so that starting lineup I mentioned is very possible, although we could still see this pairing come off the bench as neither are currently in Kerr's starting lineup. Having JK play next to a defensive big man that also spaces the floor tightens up the Warriors on both sides. It makes JK's minutes more impactful and gives the Dubs a number of looks at the 4 and 5 that they wouldn't otherwise have. It's still early in the season though, and Steve might try out a few different combinations for starting lineups in the coming weeks. As long as the Warriors are healthy, they have the formula for a very successful season. All that requires is competent lineup management. Let me know what you think of this Warriors team going into Curry's 17th year. What about the small ball lineup that Kerr started with? And lastly, what's your preferred starting lineup? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swish!